It's strange how one night, one knock on the door, can change the course of your life forever. I didn't know it yet, but the two little girls shivering on my porch that rainy evening would soon teach me more about kindness, trust, and faith than I had learned in 30 years. And by the end, I'd be standing in front of someone who could change their lives, and mine, forever. If you want to know how a single night could turn into a miracle, stay with me until the end, because this story is one I'll never forget. And if touching stories like this warm your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Heartfelt story. It helps us bring you more real and emotional tales. That night, the rain was relentless, pounding against the old windows of my small wooden house. My son, Evan, was already asleep in the next room, his soft breathing a comfort against the storm's howl. I was making tea when I heard it, a knock, faint but urgent, followed by a muffled voice. When I opened the door, there they were, two girls, no older than 8 or 9, their hair soaked, clothes clinging to their thin frames. They looked like mirror images of each other, right down to the trembling in their lips. The older one tried to speak first, but her voice cracked. We need somewhere to stay." My first instinct was confusion. Where were their parents? But the fear in their eyes told me this wasn't the time for questions. I stepped aside, letting them in. Their tiny shoes left wet prints on the old wooden floor. I grabbed blankets from the couch and wrapped them around their shaking shoulders. They huddled close, not saying much, only whispering softly to each other like they were afraid the world might hear. I made them hot cocoa, the way I always did for Evan when he was upset, with extra marshmallows floating on top. They clutched the mugs with both hands, as if the warmth might seep into their bones. The older one finally spoke again, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Our mom, she didn't come home." The words made my stomach twist. I wanted to ask 100 questions, but instead, I focused on making them feel safe. I set up the small guest room with extra pillows and a nightlight. Evan woke up at one point, curious about the guests, and ended up sitting cross-legged on the floor with them, playing with his toy cars. I watched from the doorway as their faces slowly softened, the tension fading just enough for a smile to peek through. But that smile didn't erase the questions in my mind. Who were they? Where had they been before they ended up at my door? And why did they seem so alone? The night passed quietly after that. I stayed up, half listening to the storm and half wondering if I had just stepped into something far bigger than I understood. By morning, the rain had stopped, but the mystery hadn't. The twins ate breakfast quietly, thanking me politely for the pancakes. I thought about calling the police or social services, but something inside me hesitated. These girls trusted me, and I didn't want to break that trust so soon. It wasn't until I stepped outside to get the mail that I noticed it, a crumpled, rain-soaked flyer stuck to the fence post. My heart skipped a beat as I read the bold letters, "Missing, twin girls. Last seen Tuesday evening." The photo was unmistakable. It was them. And the name printed at the bottom, the name of their mother, would send me into a story I never expected to be part of. I walked back into the house with the flyer in my hand, my mind racing. The name printed in bold at the bottom was Claire Whitmore, a name I'd only seen in news articles and glossy magazine covers. A real estate tycoon. A philanthropist. A woman whose net worth had been listed in the hundreds of millions. And yet, her daughters had shown up at my modest house in the middle of a storm, with no one looking after them. When I showed the flyer to the twins, they froze. The younger one's eyes filled with tears instantly. The older one bit her lip so hard I thought she might make it bleed. "We don't want to go back," she said quickly, the fear in her voice cutting straight through me. Please don't make us." I crouched down to their level. "Why?" I asked gently. The answer came slowly, in broken pieces. Their mother, though wealthy and powerful, was rarely around. They were mostly left with nannies, in a house so big they could go days without even seeing her. 2 weeks ago, a new man had appeared in their mother's life, someone they didn't trust. He had been around constantly, making decisions, changing routines, and watching them with eyes that made them uneasy. The night they came to me, they had been home alone again, and the front door had rattled like someone was trying to get in. They panicked and ran. It was a story that made my heart ache. I knew what it meant to grow up feeling like the world didn't have space for you. I had been a single dad since Evan's mother left when he was 2, and I'd done everything I could to make sure he never felt alone. Looking at the twins now, I knew I couldn't just hand them over without making sure they were safe. I decided to call Claire myself. Her assistant answered first, suspicious and formal, but when I explained who I was and what I knew, there was a long pause. Then, in a voice that trembled just slightly, Claire herself came on the line. She was already in tears before I finished speaking. She told me she had been searching non-stop, fearing the worst. The man the girls mentioned was indeed her new business partner, and she had already been growing uneasy about him. My call confirmed her fears. An hour later, her car, sleek, black, and gleaming, pulled up in front of my small house. She stepped out, dressed impeccably, but her eyes were red from crying. When the twins saw her, they ran forward instinctively, burying themselves in her arms. For a long moment, no one spoke. It was just the sound of rain dripping from the trees and a mother's muffled sobs. When she finally looked up at me, she said, "I owe you more than I can ever repay." But she did repay me, in ways I didn't expect. She promised the twins they would never feel unsafe again. She took steps to cut ties with the man they feared. And she offered to help me and Evan in ways that went far beyond money, though her financial gift to us was more than I could have imagined. Sometimes, fate brings people to your door for a reason. That night, I thought I was just giving shelter to 2 frightened girls. I didn't know I was opening the door to a chain of events that would protect them, reunite a family, and give me a friend I never expected to have. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to the Heartfelt story. Every click helps us keep telling stories that remind us all, kindness can change everything.